Well, it certainly is very quiet. Hi, guys. Welcome to the presentation.
Hey, Shay, quick question.
Phil, I'm worried. You're scaring me, man. Okay, yes.
No, I'm prepared, unlike last time Jenna called on me.
Okay.
When you go through this, are you gonna, is it the PDF or is it a true PowerPoint?
It's a true PowerPoint. So yours will come up the way you would plan.
Because otherwise the last one will be stacked. Okay. That's all.
Jenna's just letting the final people in. Jenna, let us know. Go ahead and kick it. Okay. So I'm going to kick it off. Everyone, welcome to the AZGeo panel discussion. Today, we have 4 presenters who are going to talk about how they leverage AZGeo to support business needs of a variety of groups. Each one of them is going to do about a 5-minute, speaking of which, I should get that timer going, a 5-minute talk, and then we will open it up for questions and comments. We really, really want this to be user-driven. We want to hear what's working, what's not working, how to make things better, how we can collaborate. So why don't we just dive right in? Our first.
Sorry, just before we do that, I think everybody's probably figured it out. So this session is set up different than all the other sessions you've been in so far. We intentionally made this one collaborative so that you could come off mute when you wanted to, show your face, and ask us questions and interact. So please feel free to do that at any point. Use the chat for your questions so that we can kind of make it so it's not the Wild West of Zoom, but we do want your input. So, yeah, we want to see you. Thanks, Jay. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you, Jenna. With that, why don't we get started? I will put it on mute, and I believe I'm passing it to, a quick overview. Again, each panelist will discuss AZGeo and then questions and discussion. And then on that note, we're going to start with Lucas Murray from the Arizona Department of Economic Security. Then we'll have Eric Shreve from the Arizona Department of Administration, the State 911 Office. Then Patrick Whiteford from Arizona Department of Transportation, and then Phil Ponce from Engineering Mapping Solutions. So take it away, Lucas.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that introduction. So I'm Lucas. I'm the Senior GIS Analyst for Department of Economic Security here in Arizona. So I was going to talk about how we've been using AZGeo. Most of the web applications that I create for my department are internal. We have an ArcGIS Enterprise server that handles most of those requests just because they contain confidential information and such that we don't want to share outside. But I do get the occasional request for a public-facing map. And before AZGeo, I was using ArcGIS Online. I did have a complimentary organizational account that came with my ArcGIS for Desktop license. It gave me 100 service credits, which was actually enough to do what we needed to do with it. But it only had this one named user account, which is a problem because if I was out of the office or just unavailable and we needed to do something with one of the public maps that I created, that meant a phone call to me and I had to log in and make the correction. AZGeo has really helped us out in that respect, because with the AZGeo account, not only are we getting 200 service credits a year, so a little bit more of that buffer with credit usage, but now we have the ability to get multiple named user accounts at no cost. And so the first thing that I did when I got an AZGeo user account was I got my boss a data editor account so she could help me in case I was out of the office with working on any of the public maps. We can go to the next slide. And so the AZGeo has really helped us out with being able to serve many of our clients, for example, with the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. This program was set up so, during COVID-19, when there was a moratorium on landlords being able to evict renters, they had to They had to stop doing that for quite a while, but they still needed money. They still had their own mortgages to pay off and such. So this rental and utility assistance program was set up not just for renters, but also for landlords. The thing was, the program funding, which came from the federal government, was distributed to multiple different state and local government agencies. City of Phoenix had their own program for distributing funds. Maricopa County, Pima County, Tucson, all these local government agencies. And then anybody who did not have their own program, which is most of the rural counties, people would have to come to DES to sign up for services and apply. And it was just going to be this real mess of trying to figure out, if you're a renter or a landlord, who would you need to go to apply for? So I set up this program through AZGeo, which allowed people to simply type in their street address, and it would come back and tell them who do they need to apply through, what are the links to their websites, some other contact information. So it really helped to kind of clarify a lot of that information for the users of that. And then the next site, please. This has also really helped us out with connecting with many of our partner agencies. So I developed this dashboard for the domestic violence program to help with funding distribution. And I want to be really clear, this dashboard is not for people who are looking for domestic violence shelters or anything like that. This is strictly to help those shelters understand some of their local demographics in the cities and the counties. So when it comes time to distribute federal funds to their shelters, they can be part of the conversation with the state to make an argument whether they want, additional funds based on the demographics, based on, the age of the population that they serve and everything. So it's really helped out with connecting us to our partner agencies. And we have a lot more ideas on how we're going to be using AZGeo in the future, but so far this has been very helpful to us. So thank you. And if you need to get a hold of me outside of this panel, this is my contact information. So thank you.
Okay, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the state 911 implementation and how we've utilized AZGeo to support many of our business needs as it relates to geospatial initiatives. So an overview of the state 911 program, essentially, if you're not aware, the state is going through a transition of going from E911 to next-gen 911, which puts a heavy dependence on GIS for geospatial call routing. And one of the abilities that we've been able to leverage AZGeo is to establish a mechanism for coordination and collaboration with our stakeholders going from the state, county, local, tribal, as well as federal partners to make sure data consistency and the overall data supply chain mechanism is supported moving forward. Go forward. So if anyone was paying attention today or heard when the state cartographer was talking about the state 911 implementation, recently we just procured a solution referred to as One Spatial, which acts as a data aggregation as well as data validation solution for next-gen 911. And essentially the workflow or solution that we're looking at, and you can see the screenshot to the right, there's various workflows as well as logics that are in place for GIS data validation. And essentially what we're looking at is a self-served application that our local partners would utilize essentially for doing GIS data quality checks to make sure it is NG911 complete as we move forward. And as noted, leveraging our AZGeo infrastructure is one of the things we're really placing an importance on. So just kind of an overview of the data sets that are being utilized for next-gen 911. They are address points, road center lines, and various emergency service boundaries that focus on fire, law, EMS, as well as a PSAP and provisioning boundary. So, you could say that 15 counties or 15 911 systems aggregating their data to a single source shop is something that we're moving forward towards in the efforts of aggregating as well as having that transactional update that we were talking about a little earlier about our One Spatial solution And obviously, we want to have it as automated as much as possible. And then just touching on back on the one spatial solution, we will have the ability for a single sign-on environment through your AZGeo environment. So again, try to simplify things as much as possible. And this is one of the big things that we've been working on this past year. It's through our collaboration with the AZGeo 911 committee, is having a better way for education and outreach for our stakeholders, both on an operational and a technical side. So if I need to brief a stakeholder about what is NextGen 911 from a GIS perspective, I can have them point to this single source of information that we utilize through the AZGeo Hub environment to show various initiatives, technical documents, as well as having the ability to show status and implementation of NextGen 911 as it relates to GIS, which I'll talk about on the next slide. So again, dashboards, if you're not using them for your organization, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of capabilities to show metrics that don't necessarily reflect geospatial initiatives. This is one of the big things that we've been utilizing both through our 911 hub page as well as our state 911 website, essentially to show an overall understanding for those stakeholders that want to know what do timelines look like for NG 911 implementation. We can utilize tools such as this to streamline and reduce the amount of questions and inquiries that we receive to help, at the end of the day, increase efficiency. And there is my contact information if you have any questions. Thank you.
All right. So I'm Patrick Whiteford, and I'll be walking through some use cases for the use of AZGeo within the Arizona Department of Transportation. Next slide, please. So, and one more. Perfect. All right. So documentation sharing. So this has been a big thing that AZGeo has been able to support the DOT with. We have built a lot of really robust story maps that have really supported us with some targeted outreach with other data-centric teams throughout the agency. It's also been become somewhat of a new repository for metadata, so the data about our data. And what we've done there is targeted separate audiences that are not necessarily the technical experts, but someone like the executive level or someone who might be new to a team to understand what the data is that we have and how is it used. And then we've also done story maps on things like good data management practices, and it's really helped us build out our ability to continue showing different teams the importance of GIS. The other thing that I'm really proud of is it's helped us with documentation sharing. So our research team has posted a whole variety of different research projects and their takeaways up on AZGeo. So the beauty of it is that, you know, when we think AZGeo, we think geospatial data, of course, but it's now being used for so much more than just the GIS data. Next slide, please. So the other thing is, you know, data sharing and data validation. So AZGeo supported with a whole variety of new data requests that come our way. It's really helped my team promote more of a self-service mentality and more of a self-service culture within the agency as well as externally, and really help promote the use of transparency throughout the whole process. We've also built a number of different products from AZGeo, including the data supply chain, which Eric kind of spoke to just previously in regards to, we get roadway centerline data from our EU 911 partners that are then amalgamated into our authoritative roadway centerline. And part of that data also comes with address information that is used for emergency routing. So it all a very cyclical way of doing business related to this, you know, getting data from our local agencies, incorporated it into a master database, and then sharing that data back out to the locals. Next slide, please. And then, you know, ease of collaboration. I think this can't be, you know, even more. This is really important to us in the sense that AZGeo has really taken GIS to the next level with local partners as well as with even with internal clients. Those tools that we're showing here are functional classification, which is a data element that my team manages. we built a full-fledged tool around the AZGeo platform to facilitate basically the change request. And this process basically used to be completely paper-based. It was actually all in the mail, where we would coordinate with local agencies and on upgrades or downgrades to roadway functional class. And this process was completely modernized using AZGeo to help facilitate that change management. And so that feedback loop with documentation sharing, tracking, and approval workflows has greatly improved the way we do business within the agency. And it's just cool. It's a fun tool. Next slide, please. And then lastly, being able to host our data publicly within AZGeo. So for those of you who don't remember what times were within the GIS community prior to AZGeo, was if you needed to get data, you had to go to different agencies to get it. You had to go to State Land for their data. You had to go to ADOT for their data, ADQ for their data. And developing AZGeo to bring all of those systems together and bring all the authoritative data together has really helped improve customer service, not just within ADOT, but externally as well. And so something that was done specifically within ADOT was my team performs a lot of ad hoc data requests, and we get a lot of commonly asked for requests such as our milepost network. And it's not uncommon to get the same data request 5 times in a single week. And it was incredibly cumbersome for my team to support those requests, because it was the same thing where we had to zip up the metadata, we had to extract the data from a geodatabase, put it into a separate feature, zip it all up, and then send it off. And sometimes that was 20, 30 minutes per request, depending on what it was. And so it was kind of death by 1,000 cuts when it came to supporting these requests. And so when AZGeo came out and we had the ability to host our data, which is non-sensitive in nature, it's something you can see every time you drive on the roadway. I saw the opportunity to post all this data on AZGeo, and then moving forward, the team could just point customers, internal and external, to AZGeo to download data themselves. And so it's been a huge return on investment for ADOT in the sense that it's really helped improve utilization for my team, because now my team is not focusing on all these data requests. We're able to work on other things that are higher priority. So a huge return for us, and something that we're very proud of and will continue to leverage AZGeo for. Next slide, please. So this is my contact information. I'd love to just talk with you if you have any questions or any comments and guidance. Thanks, everybody.
Well, thank you all for coming today. I'm going to spend under 5 minutes and talk about what we're doing here. Not that the other guys didn't. The presentations of my colleagues prior to me were looks like applications that get information out to you. The difference, what I'm going to talk about today is how we leverage the AZGeo Data Hub as a production engine. Some of these slides may look familiar. If you've seen my presentation on Bike Rack, that's what a lot of this is from. Today's focus is going to be a little more about how we leverage the hub. The work that we do can be broken out into 3 major components: the collection of the data, the editing of the data, and the deployment of the data. And so without going into a ton of detail, we use ESRI collector in the field, leveraged with a GPS unit called Bad Elf, and RTK corrected positions to get sub-centimeter locations of all the work in the field. Somebody loves Bad Elf, nice. The important point, though, here is that ESR collector is hitting the maps that I've created up on the data hub. As the workflow continues, now the data in the data hub is accessed by my folks here in my office as a backdrop to know what to edit. They'll do things like drop new hydrant locations or valves that they've uncovered, and that allows us to either add or fine tune the GIS data. Add to that the fact that I've also made web app builder applications that allow them to maintain the data as well. And lastly, with ArcPro service editing directly, the beauty of this is that it's a very collaborative environment, and AZGeo's at the hub. The last component there is deployment, and either through the EMS web map that leverages the ESRI JavaScript 3.x API, as well as is pulling off web app builder apps to deploy other data. Again, all the data is housed in the hub, and it's truly what we've all been dreaming about. Really, is, you know, let's not be emailing data back and forth. This is all centrally located, and we're all editing in real time. Next, Shay, please. This is just an illustration of the magnitude of the work that we've done out there. Actually, I was on the bike. This is all collected with our bike, our electric bike, outfitted with GPS and video and all that. And that was another presentation we can show some other time. But the point here is that you see thousands and thousands of points collected, pushed into the hub via collector. Next. Illustration here of the raw data on the left is information that is collected in the field. It's a little hard to see, but you can see a little gray trace. The bad elf traces where we're at, is to give us even more feedback on what was done there. You see all the collection information. Again, on the right there is collector. It breaks everything off real nice. We've got drop-down menus. And now that the city staff continue to use the bad elf in the field to keep making their data better and better and better each day. It's, if anything ever goes down, hub's never gone down, but sometimes we have problems with the AZGeo network. I hear about it immediately. In fact, I was on Eric's presentation, just fielded a call from the guys in the field saying, hey, they're having issues. I said, well, you're gonna just have to wait just a few more minutes and I'll get back with them. But next slide, please, Shay. So in summary, we collect the points, and you can see here in ArcMap how they look. If you hit the next slide, it becomes nice looking GIS over the top of it. And then lastly, deployed out to the web. And so that's truly what everybody wants to see ultimately. And anytime this site is down for any reason, I hear about it immediately. These people are all over it. I guess I shouldn't have my personal links up there, but there's nothing too personal. Everything is centered around the GIS, the AZGeo Data Hub, and I couldn't be more thankful for Shay and Jenna for hooking me up with this. My clients love it, I love it, and I hope to keep using it for everybody I deal with in the future. I also am hosting, as an exhibitor, a booth that 4 or 5 of you have actually come in to visit. But if you want to, as soon as this is over, I'll be hosting that booth. If you want to stop in, any questions about this that go unanswered, I'd be happy to talk to you there.
Great. Thank you to all of our panelists. That was really interesting. I even know about a ton of these projects, and I still learned a lot and found it really interesting. So what we'd like to do now is we would love to open it up to questions, comments, thoughts, anything from you guys. Oh, there's a great question. So Jenna, or I'm guessing Jenna for this one, what happens if you go over 200 credits when you're using AZGeo?
It's an excellent question, Matt. So far, we haven't had anybody do that. So 200 credits per year is how that works. Apparently, our allotment has been pretty good for everyone. I do know that if there's anticipation of using more credits, you can work with us directly and we can have a partnership so you can purchase more. But so far, that hasn't happened.
Yes, Matt, that is a challenge. And I hope you accept it, man.
Yeah, we've turned off our geocoder, like the one that can cause credits. You can use one that doesn't cost credits.
Right, you guys put the state geocoder out there with the state data.
Right, exciting.
Well, if you guys don't put any more questions in, then I have questions for you who are attending it. I probably should have set up a Mentimeter. You can answer in chat. Are you guys using AZGeo? How about this? Is anyone using AZGeo to access data?
Put your name in the chat.
Great. Yep. Or yeah, your names are appearing, so that's great. So a decent number. Oh, this makes me so happy. Wonderful. So while I'm discussing data itself for accessing data, are there any comments or thoughts about how you're using AZGeo to access data? Every piece of data I want is out there and easy to find. Every piece of data is out there and maybe not easy to find. I really wish you would put up locations of Baskin-Robbins, the authoritative locations of Baskin-Robbins, of course. So chat, you can unmute. What are your thoughts, attendees, on data availability and if you wanted to access data?
Yeah, and I would add to that, Shay, you know, pain points, you know, we want to hear your pain points.
John.
Yeah, I've got something.
Hey, John.
Hi. So AZGeo, first off, is awesome. It's a great idea, and in practice, it's 80% like right on the mark, but I do have trouble finding content fairly often, navigating from the hub side of things. So if I want to find data on AZGeo, if I log into arcgis.com and I go to content and I search for data under content, typically that returns everything I'm looking for, but those results are never presented on the hub search. So there's a discrepancy between the results that show up when you search from the hub and when you search from ArcGIS content. And I think that discrepancy makes it a little hard to find data, especially whenever you go to like that public facing portal looking for something, but you end up like, if you search AZ PLSS sections, nothing comes up. But if you go to under content, it's like the first result there. So just that discrepancy is kind of difficult.
So Shay, can I chime in?
Yes, please.
I think there's some nomenclature we need to establish so that everybody knows that we're talking about the same things. And John, please chime in if I'm wrong. But I think what you referred to as the hub is our open data site on the front end. And if you log in, that you're referring to the content on the back end of AZGeo, is that correct?
That's correct. azgeo-data-hub.ajig-hub.arcgis.com. Yeah.
Right. So a couple things. One thing is the PLSS comment. I believe you emailed me about that, and the timing of that, we had a glitch happen with our system. So what you'll find today is that if you search the front end and open data for PLSS, you will have a result. So that was an anomaly. But you are correct that when you search the back end, and depending on how you search, it's going to be very different than when you search the front end. The reason for that is that not everything on the back end, not everything is accessible because people don't want it to be. So we only have control to add things to our open data that we get permission to do that with. But on the back end, you have access to the things that people have shared just with the organization or just with the groups. You also have access to the Esri content, so Living Atlas and those sorts of things. So you're always, as a registered user, you're always going to get more returns on the back end than you will through our open data site. And there really isn't a way for us to connect the two. And we don't want there to be, because we want to be able to provide security for those that don't want to share their data in that way. And we want to be able to filter it. So that's why you're seeing the difference between the two. It is one of those things, and it's nuanced. So our users have to get used to where they want to find the data. Typically, if you're a user and you're searching on the back end, you will get the same results and more that you would find in our open data site. But the open data site is available to everyone, right? You don't have to have an account to search that. So those are my caveats. I don't know if that helps understand how the two are connected, but please chime in.
No, yeah, I really appreciate that. I think that offers a lot of clarification, and it makes total sense. And you know, maybe just a simple write-up of the differences or the discrepancies that people will encounter would alleviate some of that you know, frustration or that confusion.
Yeah, excellent idea. So the other piece, and I'll make a note on that, on adding that, we have just recently published our FAQs, and that's to help with these sorts of things. So I'll make sure we add that to our FAQ. Excellent idea.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much, Jenna.
And
yeah.
Jenna, can I just add something real quick?
Yeah.
So John, this is also something that we've talked in the AZGeo committee, basically, the ability, thank you, the ability to search for things more easily. So one thing that we've done at ADOT is we've really taken the time to add in the geotags related to data elements. So that way, when people search, they get a better hit, because we were having the same issue where people couldn't find the route network. And it was because the way we named the data wasn't what people were searching, and just didn't make sense to them. So I think that that's something that is, you know, whomever the data owner is who's hosting this data up, they take the time to add those tags in there, so that way the searching can be that much more robust.
Yeah, Patrick, I agree. Metadata is especially crucial for ArcGIS Online. But along that note, I had a thought, and I don't know if this is feasible or even worthwhile, but potentially just like a master document that lists kind of the data set, its authoritative URL, the managing agency, and maybe like the refresh cycle of the data. So someone could open a PDF document from you know, the hub, and then type in some, you know, ADOT or a keyword or PLSS sections, and find the URL to that data set in one place with the agency who maintains it and how often that data should be updated. Kind of just having that all in one little spreadsheet location rather than nested in ArcGIS Online or something.
That's a really interesting idea. I think we're definitely going to take it to, it does run into challenges in the updating that when AZGeo is everything everyone else is contributing, really becomes an enormous challenge. But all of these we're definitely taking to the AZGeo advisory board to see if they want to prioritize it. So I love that you brought it up, and I love that you're offering solutions as well. There seem to be, I'm going to address everything in the chat, quite a few questions on discussion points for parcels, and I know it's a hot topic for a lot of people. So I'm going to let Eric address to start parcels in Arizona. Eric?
Yeah, thanks, Shay. So this question's been brought up a lot. I know Jenna and Shay, you guys get these questions pretty regularly. So if you're not aware of the state 911 program, if you've never looked at the state statute, they are severely outdated. There's nothing that reflects GIS that comes with it, which creates challenges when we start to implement next-gen 911 as it relates to GIS. So one of the things that we're looking at from a state statute / a requirement for funding for the PSAPs and 911 systems is putting language that would reflect parcel information. So essentially what we would look to do is aggregate parcel data sets from the counties into a statewide data set that could be shared and utilized by stakeholders within the state. Essentially, if you have a use case that is acceptable, that data set would be provided and you could utilize it for your business use case, essentially. One of the things that we really want to use and utilize is the whole legislative piece to it. So rather than it being more of just an assumption or when it's convenient for the counties to submit that data, we are going to put some backing on it that basically says, in order to receive funding for your 911 operation or cost reimbursement, there has to be something that has to be provided from the counties to fulfill that requirement. There's already going to put the requirements for the specific GIS data sets that I talked about earlier in this presentation. Those are going to be updated more frequently, but the parcel information is definitely something that is going to be a requirement, but not as frequent as the address and road centerline data sets. Jenna, do you have anything on that?
I don't. I guess one comment. Parcels are, as many of you know, parcels are difficult for a number of reasons. One of the things that I learned this year that was really insightful is that the statute that is associated with public records requests require counties to get a return on investment. And part of the way that they do that to adhere to public records law is to charge for their data, because they feel like they're obligated by statute to do that. So that adds another layer of complexity to releasing data for free. With Eric's help in the 911 office, we are looking at what options we have available. So I think Phil, you suggested sort of a trimmed down version. So maybe we can release geometry without all the back end attributes. We're not sure, but it is a very relevant discussion and something we are working diligently on. So we hope to have a solution soon.
Eric, this is Phil. You know, a lot of the discussions that when we get into this is related to stuff that's close to your heart and in that world. In my world, that we're dealing with things like trying to locate utilities relative to parcels, as an example. Pinal County was really cool about the last go round. I'm doing some work down in the Santan Valley, and you know, they charged me $30 for their entire data set. That's nothing, right? I mean, it took them long, you know, the employee more than $30 to prep it for me, and that's fair. It's totally fair. I'm just wondering if there could be something that we all work together, you know, like I see Kevin's on the line. You know, if we could, if the counties could just work together and have a thin version that does 90% of what everybody wants, and they don't have to charge for it. I don't think Kevin's county charges, but at Yavapai, but maybe they do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I think the other thing to add on to it, the New York discussion that Frank was talking about their use case on having a statewide parcel data set, and how that essentially gave them the ability to have an Amazon facility invest resources in the state. I think in a perfect world, the data would be open and accessible, and not have any sort of cost associated with it. But obviously I think we still have a ways to go for that. But I definitely think having the use case and being able to show what that ROI looks like for what the counties get out of this at the end of the day, I think that's something that has a lot of value and would add a lot of weight, especially when we start talking to legislatures to tell them this is the struggle and challenge that we have in, essentially counties, local municipalities, utility. I mean, there's all sorts of business use cases of people that struggle trying to aggregate that data for a statewide data set that can be mentioned in this conversation today.
You talk about challenges, Eric. So you brought all the data together for your purposes, yes?
For the address and road center lines and the boundaries, but not parcel data sets.
Oh, not the parcels? My next question was going to be, how well did they fit? Yeah,
parcels have not been produced. It's not a required data set for 911 specifics.
I'm gonna jump in because I want to make sure we get to more options, and we'll definitely include something about, I know we're moving forward on parcels, and maybe we'll also get that in the FAQs because it's one of the most commonly requested items. What is its status and where do we see it going? Johnny, you mentioned you'd like to see planned freeway projects. can you think of a particular group? Is that something you're thinking from MAG or ADOT, or I only say MAG because I'm in this area, ADOT, a group like that, because that would help us contact the correct group. If you're still here, Shawnee. Yes, you are. Shawnee, you're muted if you're talking. Either MAG or ADOT. Okay, so we'll get that on the list of things to talk to people about getting in there. Patrick's nodding, so I'm going to say Patrick will have it done by the end of the day, Shawnee.
So Shawnee, we have, my team has some alignments for future projects. Like, for example, we had the alignment for like the South Mountain 202 before it was, designed and built. Same theme for things like the North-South corridor or the proposed I-11. Feel free to reach out to me, and if I've got the data, I'm happy to give it to you. The challenge with those alignments is sometimes they can be somewhat sensitive if they're early in the planning process, because it's not uncommon for me to get requests from real estate agents wanting to know what the new alignment of a highway is so they can go buy up land and then charge the state 3 times the amount of money for it. So there is a little bit of sensitivity related to that data, but feel free to reach out and we can discuss some more on that.
And when you guys come to a resolution that can be shared with the public, let us know and we can get that out there. Jen Winterland said, would like a way to weigh in to ask for more frequent data updates for certain data sets. That's fantastic too. I'm going to give the caveat that, again, AZGeo is a hub to allow other people to update their data. So we're in this catch-22 where you're providing something and you want everyone to contribute, and that is glorious. But you're also, Jenna's herding cats, and I'm one of those cats. She can't say, Shay, get your data updated. That she doesn't have control over. But what we can do is we can come up with processes and suggestions to say, hey, Eric, people really want those address points. 100 people downloaded them. Is there any, we're noticing it could use some more refresh, or people are requesting it. So we can definitely pass information on. So Jen, were there any particular data sets? Would you want to put it in the chat, or anyone that, oh, and a soft ask is great. Okay, perfect. And that's what we do. Perfect. So AZ land ownership, good. That's one, I'll include it. If other people have other things, again, as Jen said, it's a soft ask, but we can push it out there. So that is in wilderness boundaries. Great, keep them coming.
Yeah, so I guess my caveat with wilderness boundaries, wilderness boundaries are held and authoritative by many different sources. So Forest Service, BLM, it's not one source. So that's a challenge. I have had the conversations about making that into one data set. Land has done that for our internal use, but that's a challenging one. As far as the ownership, Jen, that is BLM. And one thing that probably would help us with BLM, because that is one of the most requested data sets, is to have an idea of how many people are challenged or struggling in their business use cases because it's not updated. That's information that could motivate the BLM to be more active with their updates. And maybe there's a way that we could have voting or something through AZGeo to say, I really need this data and it's still not updated for me. Maybe there's a way that we could have that kind of priority listing so that we can pass that information on to the authoritative sources.
And Jenna, this is Jen and Shay. I totally agree. That's all I was looking for, was a way to allow the wonderful people who are posting data to understand how much we are reliant upon it. In particular with the land ownership is the incorporation of the updates on Forest Service. I know we've been pending that for a little while. Candace was going to participate. I don't know if she has yet. So that's just me nagging because that statewide data set is invaluable to us.
Sure.
Yeah, and from the wilderness standpoint, if you actually go and look at those boundaries, they're really inaccurate. They were digitized at 1 to a gazillion. So, you know, we, in a few areas where we have adjacency to them, we have gone ahead and revised them and sent them to U.S. Forest Service for review by their engineers and approval. So just augmenting that way as well. That's how we can help is, you know, at least in our area, we can get it to the right land management agency. And
and I think that's also the role that AZGeo can play, right? We can pass along information and what the demand is. I think that's important.
I completely agree. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jen. Fantastic point. I have more things to ask about, but before I push this off in another direction, we have 14 minutes left. Is there anything that any of the panelists or anyone attending definitely wants to talk about before I send us off on a tangent? All right.
So one of the questions Shay, I'll jump in real quick. One of the questions I have, it's not specific to our organization, but let's just say someone in the crowd or someone that's able to attend. What does that partnership look like to say, well, hey, I'm an organization that, you know, I either had ArcGIS online or ArcGIS capabilities, and that was reduced, my budget was depleted, et cetera. What does that partnership look like to work with AZGeo to start procuring some of those things, such as ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Desktop, et cetera?
So I think I understand your question, Eric. I think my paraphrase is, can AZGeo support underserved communities that don't have access to the software, and in what capacity? So, so we absolutely can support ArcGIS Online, because as many of you know, registered users get that. You just get it. So access to ArcGIS Online, absolutely. One of the things that my office has been exploring is a cost model that would essentially be a pass-through for organizations that don't have the ability to pay for their own licensing for, let's say, ArcGIS Pro or desktop. Is there a mechanism where we can run that through AZGeo so people can still have access to those tools and pay, you know, the cost of the license? And that's definitely something that we're looking at. I would say if anybody on the call is in that kind of situation, it would be really helpful for me to know that. The more need we have, the better we can leverage our resources. So that is something we're looking at from AZGeo perspective.
So my next question is all right, so we've talked about people using AZGeo to pull down data. I'd like to know if you're using AZGeo for anything other than pulling down open data. Are you contributing data? Are you working within a group? Have you built an app? Anything. So if you guys could put because that helps, contributing data. By the way, Andrew, I really wanted to contact you earlier and you don't have your contact info in the attendee hub. You could put that in there. I need to ask you about something else. But anyway, all right. So we've got a couple people contributing data, and I'm guessing you're contributing it much like, Patrick was talking about, you're putting it out there for other people through open data for other people to pull from. And if that's the case, is that reducing the amount of work you need to do passing information like Patrick did? He can just now send them to Hub as opposed to having to fill it in. So it looks like people are contributing data. Now Larry, so Andrew and Shani, I'm guessing you're contributing data that can go to a lot of people. Larry is talking about the Quad Cities group, which is a group that is utilizing it. Jenna, can you summarize before I say the wrong thing in a sentence?
Yeah, so the Quad Cities group is a group that supports land and requests land has to share data with smaller organizations for potential development on state trust land. Typically, those data sets can be somewhat sensitive. So what we've done is create group sharing across organizations that our planners can access, and the jurisdictions that provide the data can just integrate it into their normal workflow. They work from AZGeo, they have the service through ArcGIS Pro, and they just publish periodically. And then land is only accessing the data that has been approved by the jurisdiction. It makes it very easy to share. It makes it very easy to inform our planners, and it speeds up the process of applications at state land. So it's an efficiency to get trails approved, to get rights of way approved, to get planned projects approved for land. I think if any of you have ever tried to do that, it is a very lengthy process and is somewhat arduous. So this speeds it along.
Perfect. Thank you, Jenna. That's exactly what. So an example of, again, not sharing open data, but sharing it within a group to help your business, to share across jurisdictions to help your business needs. Mela,
So,
I thought, sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to address the same one you were going to. So it's important for everybody on the call to understand how we ingest open data from other organizations into AZGeo. And that's not, well, many of you know, we could just scrape that data. We could. We feel like that's disingenuous. So we do targeted outreach. We also, if anybody is interested in having AZGeo absorb their open data that they already publish, essentially it's just a connection that we have to set up. So it's pretty easy, and I am absolutely going to connect with you. So yeah, we'll get Scottsdale's data into open data. That'd be great.
Fantastic. And just so while people are typing in the answers to the other thing, so if you go to roads, which frightens me, so I probably shouldn't, but if I type roads, you can see that, for instance, Pima County Maps and Apps, that's what it looks like when we ingest their open data. Sat down, I think it took 5 minutes to ingest their open data. So Steve Whitney already puts out his open data. And as Mela was saying, they already do it. Why invent the wheel? So it takes 5 minutes with Jenna or Casey. They help ingest it. And then you're seeing not just the AZGeo data that people share up through AZGeo, but Pima County, City of Tucson, City of Scottsdale. That's what it looks like. So based on the lack of comments, everyone loves AZGeo, uses it every day, and there's absolutely nothing that could be improved on it.
I have a question. And,
oh man, I was
Jenna
so
and Shay, yeah, I keep asking questions. What would be the ideal state of AZGeo as far as what would be like the perfect end of the road where completion? And that's probably a hard, difficult question to ask.
I think Jenna just buzzed. So I'm going to start with perfect would be there is no completion. People keep adding to it and utilizing it and coming up with new ways to use it to meet their business needs and collaborate with people across jurisdictions. And whether those are private collaborations that are password protected, like the Quad Cities, or whether open data. In the meantime, some of the steps towards public are people get in contact with us through every AZGeo page at the bottom has a contact us, or they email one of us and say, these are the layers we'd like on there. Those layers are easy to find, well tagged, as Patrick was talking about, so that they're easy to search for. And people can just immediately find what they need when they need it, and its use as a collaboration tool. That's my view of perfection. Jenna, do you have?
I'm going to concur. I agree with you. And my caveat is that I was slightly distracted, so I apologize. The perfect AZGeo, I think it keeps evolving, right? Based on our needs. I want it to support the business case uses for data in Arizona across the board. Maybe that's a little high expectation, but I do have hopes that we continue to be able to support everyone that we can. And that includes rural and underserved agencies, et cetera. I want to give the tools for data development and continued economic development in parts of Arizona where that's very difficult. So I do kind of have this high rainbows and unicorns idea for it.
Hey, Jenna, can I add?
Yes, Casey, please add.
I see it, I would like organizations to add AZGeo into their workflow in terms of when they're adding data, just instead of something that is, oh, let's put it on AZGeo as a secondary thought, but as a primary thought that, hey, we need to make sure it's set for AZGeo. That's my thought.
Thanks, Casey.
I love that thought, Casey. I agree completely. Instead of it just being something that you tag on, it's part of the workflow. It makes your life easier. It's already, you think about it just naturally. Good call. We have 4 minutes left. Does anyone have anything to add or ask? All right. Well, I cannot thank all of you enough for attending. A special thanks to our panelists for putting together the presentations on what they've done and for keeping it under 5 minutes each. Very well done. And also a huge thank you for all of those. And again, we'll keep the chat open, so keep it coming. For all of you who attended, I get so frustrated because I know AZGeo can be improved and I know people know how they want it improved. But if no one tells us, we can't keep growing it and improving it. So this type of thing, I love hearing from you guys, figuring out what's working, where it needs to grow. I just really, really appreciate your time with this.
Yeah, me too. I would like to add that the AZGeo Advisory Committee is open. Anyone can come and talk to the advisory committee and talk to the work group members so that we can drive things in the direction that's going to help you and your business needs. I would encourage you all to join us there. And Shay, there is another, yeah, you saw it, Ryan Blum's idea. I think that's something we should take to the committee as well. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for the discussion. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Jenna, would you mind leaving this open so that if chats keep coming in, I'm copying and pasting.
Yes, I'll leave it open for 2 more minutes.
Thank you.